Let's talk about Technobodily ethnomethods as ways in which individuals co-enact percepaction in video interaction. First of all, let's remind ourselves that social interactions are a necessity for oneself to exist and thrive. As Sartre stated, the other is indispensable to my existence and equally so to any knowledge I can have of myself. And he added, thus, at once, we find ourselves in a world which is, let us say, that of intersubjectivity. It is in this world that individuals have to decide what they are and what others are. Wrongly, communication is often seen as a simple transfer of information. It contains in fact much more, insofar as we also communicate to build relationships, share emotions and feelings, act on others, seduce or attack, reinforce our identity or that of others. Furthermore, there is an eternal human desire for ubiquity and omnipresence, a longing to be present in multiple places simultaneously. There is also a growing need for extimacy in informal settings. This notion has first been coined by Lacan, referring to the essential identity between the outer world and the inner world of the subject. This concept of extimacy has then been renewed by Tisserand in relation to the modern era, defining it as the movement that repositions some elements of our intimate lives into the public domain, so as to have a feedback as to their value. This is also grounded in the fact that body and space are core elements of social interactions. Individuals sensorially engage in the material world using multimodal resources, verbal utterances as well as gestures, facial expressions, gazes, body postures, movements, spatial arrangements, manipulation of objects, etc. Not only to communicate or make their interactions accountable, but also to express, manifest and display their sensory access to the world. However, with the COVID-19 pandemic, bodies become threats to each other and spaces cannot be shared in the same way anymore. Other individuals are both a way for oneself to stay mentally healthy and a risk to one's physical health. Caring for each other during a pandemic lays on a fine line between isolating oneself and keeping one's social interactions active. Digital devices are then regarded as a panacea. They have become a way to interact safely, to fulfill the human desire for ubiquity, and to maintain a sense of belonging. Screens seem to form a compromise, allowing individuals to follow physical distancing rules without withdrawing from social life. However, as safe and intuitive as they may seem, digital screens remain complex and multidimensional devices. They actively take part in shaping human interactions insofar as they carry both possibilities and constraints, affordances, into inter-individual communication. Therefore, it appears crucial to observe practices through which individuals make use of their digital devices and reappropriate them, and to better analyze and define the digital literacy co-enacted in embodied and artifacted social interactions. To further understand the on-screen display of extimacy and the enactment of digital literacy, within the Smart Communication project led by Florence Olof and funded by the Academy of Finland, I collect and analyze data of video calls in between French friends and family members across the world and from various generations during the 2020 global pandemic and the lockdowns. And within the Human Technology Use Hybrid Sociabilities in Times of a Pandemic project, a pilot study funded by the Gen Z program at the University of Oulu, I focus on a specific community of individuals particularly affected by the ongoing restrictions, expatriates in Finland. Young foreigners have most parts of their existing social life abroad and are yet to create a new social network in Finland. Alone in a foreign country during a pandemic, they are facing the challenges brought about by social distancing and travel restrictions. On the one hand, expatriates in the context of travel restrictions try to maintain contact with their close ones from afar through video interactions. Digital devices in this case allow individuals to share their immediate world with distant others. On the other hand, young migrants develop ways of getting to know other expatriates and locals through small gatherings. Digital devices are then ways for them to share their distant world with new acquaintances in their immediate presence. They are indeed used both to reach out to each other through social networks, for instance, and to show personal elements on smartphones in face-to-face encounters. My research methodology to study embodied and digitally artifacted interactions during the COVID-19 pandemic draws on an interdisciplinary approach. It resorts to visual ethnography as a particular way of engaging in the fieldwork. It proceeds from the belief that culture is manifested through visible symbols situated in constructed and natural environments. Therefore, we observe a shift from word and sentence-based anthropological thought to image and sequence-based anthropological thought. I draw on multimodal interaction analysis to observe embodied and artifacted ethnomethods. As mentioned, interactions are body-to-body experiences. They are multimodal in essence, and they can be plurisemiotic as well when taking place online in a techno-discursive environment that is composite by nature. I also resort to phenomenology as a transempirism, focusing on intersubjective experience, a way to rethink human interactions and artifacted intercorporality in the digital era. Some preliminary results of the data I already collected reveal the collaborative, multimodal and technical nature of seeing and being seen in video calls. I can mention here some of these elements. First, video calls in informal settings do not exclusively consist in talking head configurations, but rather in experience sharing configurations. They are not only an act of showing one's face to others, it is also about showing their surroundings, their relatives, their activities, etc., be it a recent achievement, a joyful event, or even the simple presence of a pet around. These showing sequences emerge from the fact that, as Perez-Lansac and Rincon stated, we increasingly define our identity as what we can exhibit and what others can see. Intimacy is so important to define ourselves that we have to show it. It confirms our very existence. Then my analysis of showings of otherwise non-participatory third parties, such as babies and cats, or elements like homemade food, led me to identify the multimodal structure of the process of online showing, from the preface to the initiation, that could be self-initiated or hetero-initiated, to the showing itself, guided or non-guided, and finally to the closing, direct or indirect, and the transition to another conversational topic. These processes are accomplished through Technobodily ethnomethods. Let's also mention that in video interactions, perception and action are two faces of the same coin. They are intertwined and consist in the same operation. They constitute what Roquet names a percepaction. Perception as a gesture, an act of getting out of oneself to see and being seen, perceive and being perceived, look and show. In video calls, percepaction is orchestrated collaboratively, each one guiding the other in their perception of themselves, their surroundings, and their experience. By co-enacting percepaction, participants make the invisible visible, foster sociability even remotely, and prevent social exclusion. However, it requires individuals to foster what I call technobodily literacy, that I define as the process of developing the technical, cognitive, socio-affective and bodily skills needed in order to interact, create, learn and work and fully partake in the social digital world.